Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon. Hey guys, it's Van Diesel back at another Cardfight Vanguard deck profiles. If you guys enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. Let's get one started. Today we have Granblue, Negrobolt. If you don't know what Negrobolt does, this rewards quote unquote, not quote by me, true Granblue players, end quote, who are willing to mill their entire deck just to prove a point. I wish I was joking. I really do, but I'm not. So, like, Negrobolt rewards those people with very big rewards and a very scary card. Downside is its own worst enemy. We'll go over how in the deck profiles. Let's go ahead and get it started, shall we? First up, our starter today is the one and only Captain Knight Kid. If I'm building a deck that has suicide plans, I'm at least going to make it my favorite starter for Granblue. Grade 0 boost, 10k shield, 6k base. Auto, when it's rode upon, draw a card, any of your opponent's Vanguard to grade 1 or greater, you get a quick shield, take it to hand. Standard starter ability, nothing too special about it. You get a draw, you get a quick shield. That's it. The quick shield normally for discard fodder, and the draw, it could be a top deck. You never know. So, yeah, Captain Knight Kid's here because he's my favorite starter. Trigger Rise, you run 12 crits, 4 of them being Mortal Mimic, 4 of them being Night Spirit, and 4 of them being Rampage Days or Crit Sentinel. 5k base, 30k shield, grade 0 with boost. Continue Sentinel up to 4 Sentinels in your deck. Yeah, you want the crits. Here's why. Your deck mills out pretty fast if you play this right, and this deck can hit astronomical numbers, and the Vanguard is at least going to be a double crit if you play this right. So you might just want to run the 12 crits to make your other rear guards double critical, just to force your opponent to, you know, what's the word? Oh, right, PG. Yeah. And then we run our 4 heals in Good Luck Charm Banshee, grade 0 boost, 20k shield, 5k base. Yes, we run the regular heal trigger. We do not run the Heal Guardians. I don't have to say why, but I'm going to say it anyways. Heal Guardians are detrimental to my playstyle because I like to hit high damage early, and if I don't have a grade 3 in hand, I will willingly discard a grade 3 just to G-assist into my main grade 3. Heal Guardians are grade 3s, which means if they're in my hand, I cannot G-assist with them, so I have to throw them down, but because they have shield, they might prevent me from taking damage, and because they have abilities that activate when I'm not at grade 3, or if I haven't written a grade 3 yet, they could possibly stop me from taking damage in the first place by being at least a 25k guard, or nullifying criticals. So I don't like Heal Guardians because of that. They're very detrimental to me, and that 5k shield between the regular heal and the Heal Guardian always makes the difference. Like, I've calculated so many times, if I had a Heal Guardian, how would this have gone down in that situation? I would have lost so many times because of that 5k shield difference. I can't even tell you how many times. Trigger sacking, power buffing, Heal Guardians would have been the death of me if I ever ran them in a lot of scenarios. And in the decks where I did run them and then I took them out, they screwed me over more than helped me. There's only one deck to this day I still run a Heal Guardian willingly, and that is because if I'm going to lose a heal, it's at least going to hand. 4 copies of regular heal. Now on to our normal units. 3 copies of Skeleton Sea Navigator, 7k base, 10k shield, grade 1 with boost. Act, rear guard, rest 2 rear guards, put the top 5 cards of your deck to drop zone. Okay, very simple skill. You rest 2 rear guards, mill 5. Now I want to let this be clear. This is not once per turn and you don't have to rest itself, which means you could rest this in your back row center, mill 5. Cool, you got 5 cards and drop. Call 2 triggers. Skill of Skeleton Sea Navigator again. Rest Z 2 triggers. Mill another 5. Perfect. You have 10 cards and drop and you're about to hit the first... Actually, no, you've hit the first threshold of Negrobolt. Yeah, Navigator on his own, if you use it once like a normal person, if you're a normal person and you use it once, okay, yeah, you know, it does a lot for Granblue. But then if you're like my friend Mandala, who I built this deck for, and I'm pretty sure Negrobolt was made for, if you play like Mandala does, a quote-unquote true Granblue player, insanity gets thrown out the window along with any other resemblance of a plan, proceeds to go 4 times Skeleton Sea Navigator and mills 20 deck cards in the time span of 1 turn. Yeah, you hit numbers quickly, but your deck will not thank you for it. 3 copies of Skeleton Sea Navigator, because this thing can be terrifying in the hands of the insane, shall we? 3 copies of Dancing Cutlass, 6k base, 10k shield, grade 1 with boost. Act, drop zone, bind another Dancing Cutlass from your drop zone and put the top card of your deck into drop zone. Call this card to rear guard and countercharge 1. A lot of people said this is needed in Negrobolt. I don't see it. Maybe it's the way I built it, but I don't see this being needed in Negrobolt unless a certain path comes down the line. Either way, Cutlass is just a nice card, I guess. Like, he gets you a counter charge, he can get himself back from drop, and since Negrobolt can't call from drop, it's always really nice to get it, and he just you do technically lose 2 cards from drop, and then you're getting 1 back, so you're losing a grand total of 1 card from drop. But since how Negrobolt is ordered in increments of 10, as long as it's not like you're at exactly 20 or 30 or 10, you are perfectly fine to use its skill. Colorless is a decent card to have. 3 copies. 4 copies of our final grade 1, which is Witch Doctor of Powdered Bone, Negrobone. Grade 1, boost, 10k shield, 8k base, act, drop zone. Discard a card from your hand and put this card into your drop zone. Sorry, put at the bottom of your deck. Call a grade 1 from your drop zone to rear. If your drop zone has 10 more cards, you may call any grade instead. So either you call one of these 2 or itself from using its skill, or you do what you're supposed to do, use this twice, and then just... or at least twice, and then be able to call literally anything from your drop zone, hit astronomical numbers that I don't need to explain. Yeah, it's the same thing as Cutlass, where you do technically lose a drop zone card, but, you know, once more, as long as you're not on, like, the very line of the increment, you will be fine. 4 copies of Negrobolt, because since Negrobolt cannot call from drop zone, you want to have someone who can call from drop zone, and that's what this is. Grade 2 time. Every grade 2 in this deck is very important, and if you do not run either of them, you are crazy. 3 copies of Pirate Swordsman Columbard. 9k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto Vanner Rear when placed. Counterblast from anywhere, by the way. It can be from drop, can be from hand, can be from anywhere. Counterblast 1, search up to 1 card, put it to drop zone off your deck, and call up to 1 card from your drop zone to rear. It is a named once per turn, so you can only use it once that turn. So pay a Counterblast. Okay. Search your deck for any card. You don't have to mill if you don't want to. You could still just call even without milling. But send any card to drop zone. Cool. And then then you're allowed to call anything from drop zone. Or you could just call the card you sent back to the drop zone to the board. Yeah, if you're wondering why this is named once per turn, it's because you could effectively just send itself to drop zone, call it back, and then use its skill to send another card, etc., etc. You can get a board out of it. Columbard is very interesting. Especially because he can set up your drop zone for like the things that are annoying. For example, use this to hit this into drop zone, because if you start milling at the right time, this thing becomes deadly, and anyone who knows how, and anyone who sees this deck profile and is worried about fighting against it and know you're playing Negrobolt will murder this the second it hits the field. So make sure this is always available in drop. 3 copies of Columbard, because he can lead into other combos that we'll get into later. 3 copies of Ruin Shade. 9k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept, auto Vanner Rear when it attacks a Vanguard, mill 2, and it gets +4 for the battle, and continues rearguard during your turn if your drop zone has 10 or more cards, it gets +4. Okay, 17k, not that bad. You combine with 1 Negrobolt, that's 27, which is automatically really... No, it's not. It's 37, because I forgot it's +20, not +10. Either way, it still swings for a lot. On its own, without Negrobolt, okay, not that much, but with Negrobolt, swings for a lot, get you 2 free cards in drop zone. Hell, you can call this with Columbard, which is what I do half the time, just because it's just a free early game swinger. So 3 copies, because it's nice in the early game, and when you're on Negrobolt, it's nice in the late game, too, to fill up your drop zone. 3 copies. 3 copies of Greed Shade. 9k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Continuous Vanner Rearguard. During your turn, if your drop zone has 10 or more cards, it gets +5. Cool, so 14k base during your turn. And auto rear when placed. Discard a card from your hand, mill top 2, and return a card not named Greed Shade from your drop zone to hand. So you have to pick a card from drop zone, but it can be a trigger, it can be Negrobolt, it can literally be anything in your deck that isn't itself. Which is pretty good, because it can also be placed from anywhere, so you can use Columbard to send this to drop zone, then call it, then use this to discard anything, mill 2, and then get something out of drop to hand. And the best part about freaking Negrobolt is, since it's a continuous ability, even if your drop zone cards change... Wait, no, is it continuous? I think it's either continuous or when it swings, but either way, like, the way you can time it is pretty good, so... I will give Ruin Shade a hot 3 of, and I will give Greed Shade a hot 3 of, because Greed Shade is like my combo leader, because neither of them cost Counterblast. Like, we have yet to go into the Counterblasters yet, so 3 copies. And then the last grade 2, which is one of our Counterblasters, 4 copies of Dragon Undead Ghoul Dragon. 9k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept, act bind zone, Counterblast 1 and retire rear guard, choose up to 6 other normal units from your bind zone, return them to your deck and shuffle it. If you return 4 more cards, call it to rear guard. Yeah, this deck we will soon understand of how cards get to bind zone, because you're not just going to bind a bunch of cutlasses. We'll soon understand how you get these things into bind zone, but it's nice that in a Granblue deck that you're meant to go full try-hard deck out once you get to Negrobolt, can just send their bind zone back to their deck, which is really nice, so you know you can refill some of your deck cards. And it can call itself back to board as well. And auto rear, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, Soul Blast 1 and retire another rear guard to choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it. Interesting that it's not at the end of the battle, but it's still, or when it hits, but that's still pretty good. Just an on attack, Soul Blast 1, retire another rear guard, and then they lose rear guard. Granted, it allows your opponent to now, okay, well now I know they're going to do it, so I don't really have to prepare in advance for it, but still pretty good card to have. I would say I wish it gave power, but then when you consider what Negrobolt does, yeah, it doesn't need power. Negrobolt will handle every power need you have in this deck. 4 copies of Undead Dragon because he gets you back deck cards and he can get you a rear guard kill. On to grade 3s. 3 copies of Dragon Undead Skull Dragon. This thing is effectively useless if you're on Negrobolt, which is why you need to stockpile this, or you need to get ready to put this into your drop zone. I say get ready for a reason. This into your drop zone or anything into your drop zone that can get that out of deck. Anyways, continuous hand. It cannot be normal called, which means it can't be normal called to guard circle, cannot be normal called to rear guard, etc., etc. But it can be written. Continuous vanguard or rear guard. During your turn, it gets plus 2k for each card in your drop zone. We don't need to discuss that when you combine this with Negrobolt. Okay, well, let's make this clear. Negrobolt at 20 drop zone cards, more or less, like, barely doesn't make everything a Skull Dragon. 30 drop zone cards, everyone is a Skull Dragon in the front row. But if you combine Skull Dragon with Negrobolt, that means, technically speaking, one of your rear guards is just the equivalent to 2 Skull Dragons, which means unless they have a PG, they are losing. And auto rear at the end of the battle, the attack retired this unit. Okay, so he has to kill himself at the end of the battle, which sucks, but in all fairness, if he didn't, you would just have an infinitely big beat stick on your field, which is fine. And, you know, worst case scenario is you can just ride him and he still gets power. It's just the downside is, you know, it won't be as effective as having it on the other rearguard circles. But he's still a pretty good grade 3 to have, which everyone, I think, forgets that you can just ride him on a van if you really have to. So, 3 copies of Gold Dragon, he is really nice and makes this deck hit for so much bigger numbers than it already does. 3 copies of our backup grade 3, King of Demonic Seas Baskirk. This one, everyone has their own opinion on what the backup grade 3 can be, but I do prefer Baskirk for a reason. Grade 3, Twin Jet Protect Gift, 12k base. Continuous Vanguard during your turn if your drop zone has 10 or more cards, gets plus 5k in a crit. Really easy to hit 5 drop zone cards in this deck, and even if the cards that will get bound later on for different reasons, you could just Ghoul Dragon them back to deck, so it's easy to become a 17k base double crit during your turn, and act Vanguard once per turn, Counter Blast 1 and Soul Blast 1, call a card from your drop zone to rear of any grade, and it gets plus 5k power for each grade of that unit. So, you know, it's a Counter Blast and a Soul Blast, which isn't really that bad in a deck that has very few Counter Blasters, and this being the only Soul Blaster, can get plus 5k for the grade of the card you call. You can just call Skull Dragon, get numbers off of it. And he can also make himself a 5k double critical just by having 10 cards in drop. Very easy. You could run things like Night Rose in this, and because like Night Rose will be able to let your rear guards hit bigger numbers, I can understand why. Thing is, Night Rose would like nuke your board, and considering what Negrobolt does, you don't want to end up losing out on the board that you're retiring, and Baskirk doesn't make you nuke your board, and he can also hit for double critical, which is why I choose to run Baskirk. If you don't want to run Baskirk, you can, but I prefer Baskirk because of the extra crit and the slight pressure that it puts, and it doesn't require you to lose a board to make plays with. And then our last unit in the deck is our main grade 3, and the thing that I believe embodies my friend Mandala to a T. 4 copies of Witch Doctor of the Dead Sea, Negrobolt. Grade 3, Twin Drive, Protect Gift, 12k base. Auto Van at the start of your ride or main phase. Bind all cards that aren't triggers from your drop. It is a mandatory effect. Now I question them for this. Bushy, why did you say ride or main phase? Why not just ride phase or at the beginning of the main phase? Why specifically both? Implying that you could switch amount of drop zone cards between the ride and the main phase. I don't know why Bushy did it. That's just dumb in my opinion. Is it because like they're so worried that if it was just the beginning of the ride phase, when you would ride this, it would miss the timing, so you could just keep your drop zone cards and then go pure ham? If that's what they're worried about, then okay, Bushy, sure, but then you also have to remember this deck can be very terrifying even if it doesn't do setup beforehand. Anyways, onto its terrifying effect. Auto Vanguard, when it attacks into anything, because apparently that's just the norm now where anything can swing into anything and its effects will go off. For every 10 cards in drop zone until end of turn, this unit gets plus 1 crit. Okay, so if you have 20, it's a triple crit, that's fine. But wait, all of your final units get plus 20. Not plus 10, not plus 5, not plus 15, plus 20. So you swing for 10 cards in drop, which is really easy to do because all you have to do is just use this 2 times. Remember, because of how timing works, because at the start of the main phase, all your drop zone cards would go to bind zone anyways, so you just need this to set it up. Once more, like, have a Columbard at the ready to send this into drop zone. But, so plus 20 in a crit, you have 20, so automatically this is a 32 double crit when it swings on its own. Cool. Everything else is swinging for probably the 30s or like the higher 20s. You have 20 or more cards. This boy swings for plus 40 to front row and double crit on Van. And if you do what Mandala managed to do to me and have 30 cards and drop, that is plus 60 to front row. And this thing is swinging for quadruple critical. And I'm telling you right now, Skull Dragon times 31 is 62. So 62 plus 12 is 74. Plus 60. That is 130 some amount of power with a singular crit. While granted I'm at 3 damage, but numbers that are surpassing DP. On second grade 3 turn, I might add. I want to let that be clear. And the best part is, that ability isn't restricted to your opponent being at grade 3. So if you do this while they're at grade 2, they're going to hate you and probably die unless they have PGs prepared. In continuous Vanguard Circle, all of your units get plus 5k shield for every 10 cards and drop. Okay, so you know, during your next turn, you basically have like a lot of good guardians for shield. And then, you know, your cards get bound. Okay, as long as this thing's in drop, you can just start sending a lot in the back. And because very few cards in the deck counterblast, just play it with counterblast. Negrobolt. Anyone who fights this, and you do this to them while they're at grade 2, will hate you with a burning passion. And it is so, and I've been on the receiving end of it, and I haven't been the one to use it. It is so freaking terrifying, staring down attack that is basically Skull Dragon, attack that is Skull Dragon but with extra criticals on it, and attack that is Skull Dragon times 2. This deck is bullshit is what this is. Like, Bushy had to do what they did to this, because remember, Rider main phase makes it so that it cannot, so you cannot break it easily. If it wasn't for that, if it was just Ride phase, this deck would hit the meta so quickly. I guarantee it. 4 of. And then we have our gifts. 5 Protect 1s, 5 Protect 2s. So Protect 1, when acquired, it goes to hand. You may only place it on Guard Circle. It's a Sentinel. An auto Guard Circle when places card from your hand. One of you is copy the battle. Okay. And Protect 2, when acquired, put it on a rear Guard Circle. Gets plus 5k power and gets plus 10k shield when intercepts. Okay, so you know your interceptors are all 15k interceptors more or less. Now, this is one of the ones where you could go 50-50 on the gifts. You could go Protect 1 to increase your hand for PGs later, especially because like this thing makes your shields on Guard Circles so astronomically big already. Like for every 10 cards in drop, if you have just 10, that's a 10k shield on all of your cards. But like your grade 3s are 5ks, your grade 2s are 10, and your grade 1s are 15. You got 20, which is the average with this deck, and you can actually afford to constantly hit 20 because this thing sends itself back. So as long as you have a navigator on board at all times, you can just you use navigator, mill, okay, perfect. Then use your turn, swing, use this thing, bind it, and then unbind it, send your stuff back, and then just keep looping it because you'll be able to do it, and then keep getting 20 deck cards until your opponent just dies to you. Or you can just go Protect 2, where you are constantly getting slightly more power to a unit that already has like over in the 40s already, but then also just makes it intercept a lot stronger. In my personal opinion, I do prefer Protect 2, but you can honestly go either way with this one because it's a 50-50 chance. And quick show, when one of your attacks plus 5k for the battle, you typically use for discard fodder. Of what? Great shade, I guess. I don't really know anymore. That's it for the deck? Okay, here's what you do with this. You ride Bazkirk first if you so desire it. If you don't have the ability to if you can't kill them, if they're at 3 damage before you ride to grade 3, just go for it. If they're at 3 damage before you ride to grade 3, just go Negrobolt, do the mills, kill them, bring numbers down, make it so that they have to PG at grade 2. Because if you force someone to PG at grade 2, they're probably gonna regret it later, and they can't guard the rest of the attacks. Yeah, this shit's stupid. Numbers can be hit, extra criticals can be gained. A lot of people say it's not that bad. A lot of those people probably don't have people like Mandala as their friend who are willing to do stupid shit to prove a point, and then when you realize that stupid shit is actually valuable in a deck, you realize that you are now giving them a gun that is the equivalent to a nuke that can destroy the entirety of the world the second the button is clicked. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Patreon, join in the Discord, follow the Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your vanguards.